Hello there, listeners. This is Jim the Keys Bartender coming to you from Key Largo. I'm sorry, I left the music on, didn't I? Oh, it sucks sometimes, but I hope that just adds to your listening pleasure. I'm saying, hey, this guy he's been doing this for years and he still fucks up. You know? They'd be like, yeah, you think after 4 or 5 years, it'd be 4, gosh, I thought it was 4 years last year. 2017 and it's going to be the 5th year this April. So we're 4 years into the podcast. And 490 episodes, you figure the guy would know what the fuck he's doing. But, it's just the way things are. That's it. We're in a different media that's been for at least 20 years, 30 years. How long has podcasting been around? Well, it's just recording and then putting it on. People do that, have done that all the time. Since the invention of radio, I guess 17, 18, 19, over 100 years, right? Now, this is a different media. But this is Jim the Keys Bartender coming in from Key Largo. And it is a beautiful day. Beautiful. I always get this. I know there's a nomenclature for calling it partly sunny, partly cloudy. I like mostly sunny. Mostly sunny. If you can see the sun and there's some clouds and get some shade, it's good to have some clouds every so often. You need a little shade. You can't have just the sun beating down you the whole time. It's harmful. A lot of UV rays, right? And if you don't use any SPF, you're kind of fucked. I'm sorry, a lot of F notes today. I should cut back on that, right? Well, the roads have recently, because of the close proximity of tropical activity, I'm using my words, right? I'm choosing my words carefully. I don't want to... At most, I think Fred is now a tropical storm. It's hitting the Gulf Coast, and people can die from that. I know it's serious and stuff like that. And then we have Grace, and Grace is on the other side of Cuba and is tracking across the short path across the Gulf of Mexico to the Yucatan, hit the Yucatan, go back into the Gulf of Mexico, and back into Mexico. And then we got something over near Bermuda. Just Henri, I think it's Henri, a French name or something like that, or Hervé. I'm not sure. It's an H. And it looks like we're going to get the I, when I say I, the letter I, not the I-E-I-E, E-Y-E, E-I-E, E-I-E-I-O, I guess I was trying to go for. But I mean the I, letter I, pretty soon, which is more so than 2017. So we had that 2017, that happened September 9th. It is now August 17th, I think. August 17th. And, Tuesday, a week from now, is the 24th. So it looks like there's going to be a lot of activity. There should be another one, probably. Definitely should be in the next 3 weeks to bring us back the eye. Probably in the next week we'll have some development. But when you look on the roads, it looks like people are coming back. A lot of the workers, a lot of maybe the job sites that were temporarily closed down and things like that because there was so much traffic going south. The schools have all started up already, so it's naturally a little busier because of the schools and the school buses, and the school buses going down the main road and everything stops when there's school buses, which I don't argue with and not complaining about, and makes complete sense. But it was very, very busy today, the roads, and the signals and all that stuff. They seemed to be working fine. But what I didn't notice with all the traffic, I didn't notice the traveling of trucks with towing boats behind it. And when trucks are towing boats, it's kind of like a symbol of confidence in the ongoing hurricane season. Meaning, people pull their boats out and they say, the season's over. I'm going to take my boat out. I'm going to bring it up home so I can secure it. It's not sitting in a canal or on a boat lift down in the Keys. So once we start seeing the boats come back, and there's people probably this weekend, we'll probably get a lot of them, but that'll be people that just bring their boats down and drop them in the water and then take them out and take the boats back. We're talking about the people that have summer or vacation rentals here and they leave their boats down here. So a lot of those left. And once we start seeing the ones come back, and probably may see it this weekend. But the flying in traffic is probably going to be dropping off too because of the close calls. Right? It's like as if Wyoming was, let's say if Wyoming was all on fire, or Montana, there were forest fires, and you're going to Billings, Montana, right? And all the fires are someplace else in Montana, but you hear that there's fires in Montana. Well, you might not go to Billings, Montana, because of all the fires in the rest of Montana, which would be a mistake or not a mistake, considering you may say, oh, well, if it's burning, the rest of it's burning, what if that started burning? Okay, well, I understand that. So, and I don't blame the people. We eventually needed to have a slowdown to give some people a break. Luckily, I had my vacation 2 weeks ago, but it came right towards the end. I held on for that. Other people I know did their vacations a little earlier. We did one last August for like 4 days, I think. Yeah, I'm thinking about the 4 days. I know it was last August. And it was good, but we had waited 11 months for another time off after this stuff may have been a little stretching it because we were getting raggedy at the end of it. And I think we'll talk about that a little later. I had a nice message from some friends up north in New Jersey and Philadelphia proper. Carol and Frank. They're not together, not a couple, but they're two friends from up north. And Carol asked me about I think she was asking me, I've been down here for a while in the Keys in Florida, 14 years. And she asked me a general question. I don't know if it was about Florida man or Florida people themselves or about just my general idea of Florida. And Frank commented on generating Florida man by, just putting Florida man in Google and your birth date. Oh, what's this? Oh, I said Google and Google popped up. Yeah, you're always fucking listening, aren't you? It's just like if I say Alexa, you hear Alexa go, what? For you. But he said you put that Google and it comes up with a story. And my story, what was my story here? And I'm going to address what's it say? Interesting. Okay, Jethro. I don't know if Jethro's the one. Jethro is a picture, is a guy with, it looks like a cigarette's popping out of his face. Is that a cigarette? It's a Florida man. It's a guy wearing a United States flag shorts or pajamas, holding a automatic weapon and an alligator in his right hand and cigarette burning. And he's got one of those camouflage hats on. Yep, that's Arthur's Jethro. Pasco proud, representing Pasco County. I know a few of these crazies. Oh, okay, this website. This is his website. So this one story, when I put my birthday in, and I'm not going to talk about it because I don't want to, well, my birthday is August 24th, and I put August 24th in. The Florida resident is accused of threatening a colleague with a paper knife over a controversy over Christian music. Caleb Taylor Robinson, 26, was in a big pun. Now, I don't know how I missed this, because this is the keys, and I should have this news, where he and a colleague cooked hamburgers, drank beer, and listened to music in a warehouse. What he's doing in a warehouse in Big Pine Key, The MPs, the Monroe, I don't know who the MPs are. The MPs said Robinson demanded to change the music to Christian, but his colleague refused. According to a report, it was then that Robinson used a box knife to threaten the man. Now, a box knife is not, unless it's a knife made from a paper knife. If they're talking about a box cutter is pretty fucking dangerous. So the victim retired to the bathroom, and called emergency service. Retired. That's a nice way of running and screaming to the bathroom and locking yourself in. While in the bathroom, Caleb Robinson knocked down the door and caused an estimated $200 to $400 damage, the sheriff's office said. The MPs found Robinson at the edge of the warehouse, sleeping in the backseat of the car. The MP said Robinson claimed that he prophesied hell to the MP for pointing his flashlight at him. Okay. Other, I guess, MPs, motor patrolmen or whatever, Monroe police. Other MPs heard Robinson say, prophecies all hellish pain for them. Robinson then told MPs that he had a vision that his colleague would be seriously hurt at the construction site, then said that he would cut the man's throat and throw him to a wood chipper. I don't know why that's funny. Robinson argued that the sacrifice's actions caused Satan to manifest within him. Robinson was arrested. Oh, well, that's really... Let's pick another one. Let's see what this other one... Let's just pick March 21st. A fishing light, Florida, Vero Beach, Florida. A fishing light is causing a wave of internet after a man claimed a Vero Beach woman sprayed him with a hose and told him he couldn't fish near her house because she owns water. Okay. Jose Ortiz, who is from New Jersey but lives in Melbourne, told WPEC TV that he regularly fished alongside the A1A state road south of Sebastian's Bay, and has never experienced any problems. He said he was on public property last week when Joyce Katabi, a nearby landlady, started yelling at him. Katabi told the news station that Ortiz had invaded through several holdings and fished from the shore. In the video, Ortiz asked Katabi if she owned all the water at the pier, and she said yes. She then grabbed the hose and started pouring water on Ortiz, although she claimed she did not spray it directly. Okay, well, that's not that crazy. I've seen crazier. Let's see. Do you have any other ones? Oh, this is a couple. A Florida man snapped a selfie after police say a semi-pro golfer's wife shot him following the termination of their affair. Oh, Tampa Bay Times. Oh, I like this one. Saucy. Michelle Simpson, a wife of semi-pro golfer Rhett Simpson, had been having an affair with 23-year-old Andrew Null until shortly before August 19th shooting. Detectives found several inmate pictures of them together, and she was paying the rent for Davis' apartment, the Times reports. On the night of the shooting, police say Null tried to enter Simpson's $1 million home like he usually would by deactivating the alarm system. Since they had broken things off and Simpson was seeking a protective injunction against him, they had changed the code to keep him from getting in. When Simpson saw him inside her home in the middle of the night, she instinctively fired her gun and then called 911. Null, who a friend told police was a little slow, survived the shooting, but first he took a selfie while bleeding on the floor. Always a smart thing to do, taking a selfie. Smiling when you're bleeding on the floor. But thank you, Frank, for that. And Frank quickly pointed out, Frank thought it would probably perfectly fit into it, the Florida man thing. And he's probably surprised there isn't a story about me. I mean, I did have a Florida man, not exactly a Florida man story, but pretty interesting. Florida man driving down the road with a convertible Sebring convertible, obviously convertible Sebring convertible, obviously Sebring convertible. I'm driving northbound through Rock Harbor, which is technically Key Largo, but that's the neighborhood, Rock Harbor. And I get pulled over by Monroe County's finest. And they're very nice. And the person comes up and says, listen, I don't know if you noticed, but there's, and by the time he says, do you notice? I noticed smoke coming out of from under my hood. And that's what he was referring to. And I don't know why. He must have saw it. He must have not made it under my hood. Must have been coming from the back. I don't know how he saw it, and I didn't see it coming out of the car itself. So we opened the hood of the car, both me and the sheriff's deputy, and there's smoke, and all of a sudden my car engine catches fire. And I look at him and say, hey, do you have a fire extinguisher? And he goes, yeah. He grabs a fire extinguisher, put it out. And he looks over and he goes, you don't have a cap for your oil. And I had I don't know what happened. I guess maybe I didn't secure it enough or something like that, and it fell off. And the oil started splashing around and fell on some hot parts of I drove after a couple miles. It got hot enough that it started smoking. And when I introduced some more air, it started on fire. I guess that's not a real Florida man one. So Carol asked me, she says, I've been down here for a while. What do I think about that? Is North Florida, Central Florida, South Florida, where you are, worse? And I go, that is a good question. Now, from what I know, and this is anecdotal once again, most people aren't like that. Otherwise, the whole state would have fucking broken off and sunk into the Atlantic and Caribbean Ocean in the Gulf of Mexico. It just would have been like a zombie apocalypse. People running around with their hair on fire, their bear traps on their crotches, things blowing up, gas stations blowing up, gunfire in the air. It would be all like that, certainly if we've had approached 20-30% of the residents were like the crazy stories you hear down here. But fortunately, I think the current population, 27 million, it's just a small percentage of people, but they seem to really draw attention down here in Florida. I don't know if people are attracted to it because they see the story and they say, well, that's not so unusual. For like the story you may have heard about down here several years ago. We had a guy walking down the street who was masturbating, and he stopped and he told the police that he was making his way to the Lover's Boutique, which is an adult store, to buy a DVD. And he wanted to take care of himself. He was excited and he wanted to take care of himself, which was interesting that he used that as a defense, meaning that he should have said, no, I was urinating. That's what he should have said. I was walking urinating. Because then people say that wasn't a purpose. But when he attaches a sexual thing to it, it's already whatever. It just changes the perception of the act. If you're walking down the street masturbating, stuff like that. Do you want to be a sex offender, or you want to just get busted for public indecency? I don't know if it's the same thing as a sex offender or not. But peeing in public, you can just say I was peeing in public. I mean, that would have been my first go-to instinct. But to volunteer all that information, plus you're getting a fucking DVD, you have a VCR but not a computer or internet where you can just, who buys porn anymore? It's free. It's on the internet. If you needed to, what would you call it? You needed to jerk one out, I'm sure there's plenty of websites that you could find at no problem. So, but obviously this guy wanted to go through. I mean, if you're buying a DVD, he could have paid. He could pay for a little internet. I mean, it's just a misallocation of resources for the fella. Typical. And there's other things that happen in other states that seem like Florida man stuff, right? Like the guy, I think it was Texas or Louisiana, that he was, jumped into a bayou that had a sign on this restaurant deck that said, please don't swim in the bayou because of large aggressive alligators in there. And the guy says, fuck that alligator. And you know what happened? Alligator fucked him. I don't know if it actually fucked him, but it took care of him. Or a alligator took care of him. It may not have been that one in particular, You got one aggressive alligator. I used to say there's not one. It's like saying, you're going to a bad neighborhood. There's only one bad guy in this neighborhood. No, there's probably a bunch of them. So what I'm suggesting is that it's a small percentage of people. I didn't really get to the point of suggestion yet, Carol. But I think they're spread out pretty good. There's different things that happen in greater numbers in different parts. Like the central part of the state, it seems like, and north, seems more like crystal meth stuff. But they got that down here too. But there's a lot of coke and marijuana things. And I'm not knocking marijuana, but alcohol related. There's a Hall of Fame for it. We got... They got a social media page called the Florida Keys Wall of Shame, and it shows how some people act down here. It's normally bad behavior, not that's necessarily Florida man behavior. But yeah, I mean, we've had. Oh, okay, here's a classic. We have this site down here on Lower Matacumbe Bay. I think it's Lower Matacumbe Bay, geographically a little about up to like at mile marker between 72 and 75, I think it's called, or 78. I don't know, whatever. But they're narrow of the key, and on one side, it's called Ann's Beach, and there's another one called Indian, and a little further down, it's called Indian Key Fill, and that's where they filled up, the waterway so they could put down Route 1, and there's small beaches there, and what happens? We'd have poor people in the lower socioeconomic level from Miami. Certain people, not all of them. I mean, there's people down here too, but they got better places to go. So they come down here for a party and they bring their little grills and stuff like that, and they trash that area. It's not set up for, it wasn't set up for visitors, so they don't have trash cans there and stuff like that. So, but people just come in and park and start doing this thing, and they leave their shit all over the place. And when I say shit, I'm not being metaphorical. They actually leave shit. There's a great video of a guy just squatting down, taking a shit, and a guy in a boat just driving by and goes, "Hey, nice, good job, buddy." Just taking a shit right on the side of off the side of the road on these big pieces of concrete, just squatting there. And that is not a surprise. We got all sorts of things down here. We get the meth heads but we get people like that. They're low budget travelers. And people have a tendency, because they're not speaking English. Because if you go further up the state, you'll find poor people who happen to look that are gringos, right? Or white people. You go further up, and that's when it gets more. Down here, your bad behavior has something, more of a Latin tilt. But you go to mid-state, north of it, it's white. Every so often, black people, and the black people seem to be relatively immune to it. They're more like bystanders in this circus that is Florida, right? because you don't see it a lot. Sometimes, the guys get busted, especially anybody in lower socioeconomic, they get busted for property crimes, drug crimes, and things like that. But the real crazy ones, are white and Latins down here. The ones that really get crazy busted when you see the crazy pictures and all that stuff. So I'd have to say it's a small percentage. Most people I meet here are reasonable. They would not shoot someone because they would not give them a can of beer, which a woman called the Sea Hag did down here in the Keys. I don't know if she was homeless or in between homes or something like that, but she was they were outside, maybe around a campfire or whatever they were doing, drinking, and she asked for a beer, couldn't get it, but she didn't have a beer, but she did have a gun, which she probably could, because people would have traded. She could have traded her ammo for some beer, because people prize that stuff down here. We got a lot of guns. Got a lot of guns in Florida, kind of like Texas. We're like Texas, Georgia, Louisiana, Mississippi. A lot of fucking guns. A lot of stupid things going on. So we got that. We got your Florida man thing, but it's not. It's just, if it's less than 1% and are active, that will fill up your news. Less than 1% of the people are like that. But maybe not. Maybe not. I used to think for some reason, I know I'm not supposed to get political. People say, why do you get so political and all this stuff? And it's just the way I feel. I'm the Keys bartender, and this is what I do. People come and start volunteering their opinions at the bar to me. And I feel the need, when I get the opportunity, to air my opinions. And this anti-mask, all this bullshit going on, just as much in any other state, I guess. No more, no less. We got an asshole governor who's militantly anti-mask and is playing to his core base, and doing this thing. We're making it optional in the schools and stuff like that. People talk about how it's hard to find workers right now. And it's talking about, they're so easy to stay at home and stuff like that. Well, a lot of it has to do with the attitude of people that come in. A lot of people don't want to work because they feel threatened. Feel threatened by the stupidity of people and stuff like that. And I always thought there was no way could a large group of people consciously go against science. I mean, they've been doing it for years down here when it comes to climate change. And we all know what happened this summer. The heat, Texas, and all that stuff. And as soon as it snows, one time it fucking snows, people are going to say, oh, what happened to fucking climate change? And then next year it'll be 110 degrees in Seattle. People go, oh, that's climate change. Okay, yeah. I mean, fucking like one snowfall. Remember the thing, one swallow doesn't make for springtime in Capistrano. It's an old saying. One swallow does not make for springtime. It takes all these other things happening all over the world. Dead zones in the ocean with no oxygens and stuff like that. Forest burning and stuff like that. And all this shit. Lost water out west. There's very little drinking water. And so I'm always surprised at the amount of people that eschew scientific studies or get it from industry-based studies. Like the Petroleum Institute for years denied climate science. They did, even though, and they would hire fringes, scientists from the fringe part of and they would point out, oh, well, we don't, this study doesn't jibe with what's actually occurring in this price, and this, the ice shelf is not actually falling apart. And as it's all melting and the Arctic is opening up and we're going to start fighting over the resources under the Arctic. I mean, they're going to keep on calling the Arctic when it's and when it's green up there, it's going to be some green spaces. Is there land underneath? I know Antarctica, I think they have some land under there and shit like that. Is there any land under there? Is there something? But, they're going to be able to take a boat all the way across the polar regions. Maybe not. Maybe still take a icebreaker or something like that. But I'm always surprised at the group of people that would go against science. And what does that really do for you? I mean, there was a whole lot of other things to argue about. But to make this science, anti-science thing and be anti-vaccine, anti-mask and all that stuff, I don't get it. I don't get this anymore. We went through this in the 20th century, right? We got polio and all these diseases and shit like that, and then we're screwing up. We know what to do. Most places know what to do. New Zealand just shut down the whole country. It's looking to close down them because they got one case. Now, the rest of the world that can't fucking, keep mask on and do the right shit, it's going to say, it's something we're going to have to live with. We're going to have to live with some people dying. Or maybe, you know what? Are we supposed to care for someone who's... Are we supposed to care? And when you got to think of these optics. When you're overweight and look unhealthy, and you're an anti-vaxxer, anti-mask, what kind of response do you expect from someone with similar mind who says, weren't you just telling me how this is all bullshit and masks don't work and don't do this and the vaccine, you're waiting for FDA approval and stuff like that. There's, FDA approval is not given to a lot of things that we use on a regular basis, but it looks like that's going to eventually come up. As a matter of fact, in a couple of weeks, they're going to be offering booster shots, it looks like, for people. I'm going to go and get my booster shots where there's still people out there that haven't gotten theirs. And I'll tell you something. I have inside information I don't give away and stuff like that, but the hospitals down here are full of patients. Down here, more so than they were at the peak. You know why? Because they're full up on the mainland. And they're not shipping them up there anymore. Because they still see the numbers going up. And you see the school districts and stuff like that, they're finally bucking the system. Our governor in Florida has mandated that school districts cannot make mask mandatory. And that parents can write notes saying their children opt out. Why don't you opt out of seat belts? Why don't you opt out of any Department of Agricultural safety checks on food and stuff like that? Why don't you opt out on washing your hands, washing your food, after going to the bathroom? Just opt out. Why? Because it's science. Science is lying, right? So you don't have to do any of that stuff. Drink your hydrochloroquine or bleach, whatever bullshit you do for your non-scientific people or crazy people. The crazy doctor who told us, demon sperm is the cause of the disease. Well, listen to them. They have an agenda. It's not a scientist, a doctor, a health professional. If you think about it, not all of them really take the Hippocratic Oath, or they don't really know what that means. Is the first part of the Hippocratic Oath is first, do no harm. Now that first one could be very easily covered by not just saying, if you don't know and you don't have something smart to say, just don't fucking say it. Don't say it. Don't say shit like, we all know that masks aren't effective. Now, they may not be 100% effective, but they do something. It's like condoms. People fucking lie about that stuff all the time. When there's sexually transmitted disease, they come in there and the guy may have had multiple sex with, adult entertainers and professional sex workers and all that stuff. And the doctor might say, do you use a condom? And the guy says, yes, I always use a condom. No, he probably didn't use a condom. You know? Because when done properly, when used properly, a condom works. That's a seal against that. You know, and guys used to, guys lied about, when they were getting AIDS. You had closeted straight men getting AIDS, and they didn't want to admit they were having gay sex. And not that there was anything wrong with having gay sex. What I'm saying it was wrong to lie about it when they were trying to stop the spread of it. And to say, well, do you wear a mask? Do you not wear a mask? Do you wash your hands? I mean, there's so many times you could slip up and get something. And if you're with these new variants, you got to remember a virus is a living thing. And they propagate themselves quickly. So they evolve quickly. Not like humans. Humans take, there's a certain amount to pass on a genetic trait. You got to mature enough so you can pass it on to someone else. Right? A trait. That's why evolution takes so long in humans. Because you got to wait, let's say, 15, 16 years at the earliest before that next generation comes, and then you pass it on to the next and the next and the next. Well, viruses propagate differently. And that's day to day. Day to day. And they're livings, and they adapt. And I know it's hard to people this stuff. This what I learned from biology in high school, in college, and what I read today. Natural selection. The most viable life form that can survive survives, depending on the environment it's in. Obviously, you take humans and put them on the moon without any oxygen, they won't survive. You put humans on a planet with breathable air and food and water, watch what happens. But put someone in an environment that isn't conducive. You don't see the numbers exploding. People say, well, look at India and all that stuff. And India and China. Why there's so many people there and stuff like that? Well, they were civilized for years. Thousands of years. And it took thousands of years for their country to get in the condition that it's in. Yes, the Indus Valley in India was very lush at one time. That's why they had civilization develop. It's just like the Euphrates River Valley. Tigris and Euphrates. There were gardens. There were perfect places for populations to begin. And then when they grew too large, they exhausted the resources. Much like we do in the West, like they happened in Oklahoma in the 1920s, late 1920s, early 1930s, the Dust Bowl era. It's just one of those things where development occurs in places that are marginally adaptable for human habitation. Australia. That's stuff that happens. So don't be surprised that the virus gets stronger because it's just running rampant. We're just letting it go. And it gets more virulent and things like that. Just hence Ebola. Ebola was so deadly. Remember that came about that they said, well, we got to nip that in the bud right away. They weren't going to fuck around with it. But people here, remember when the COVID first came out? It's just a flu. It's just a flu. No, it was a coronavirus. It was a novel coronavirus. Humans weren't used to it, and they weren't ready to fight it off. Some people did, some people didn't. And what happened, it kept circulating within the population, and it's evolving. That's why we're the Delta. The next is the Lambda. Who knows what fucking alpha, beta, gamma, delta, epsilon, zeta, eta, theta. I mean, if they get to theta, holy shit. Or omega. What kind of virus will it be? And then we're sitting in Florida with a governor who suggests, like, we're going to have to live with it. We don't want to take away your freedoms. Well, you are taking away the freedoms of people to die. You're absolutely taking all their freedoms away. And some people are getting, right now, the kids are getting it. The kids are in the thing, and it's up to us to look out for our kids and to tell the school boards you want, consideration for other people, for the teachers. There's teachers that are teaching your kids that can't handle this. And they want that. They want mask mandates. They don't. Your kid's healthy enough to wear a mask. And don't you want them to be thoughtful? Do you not want to be your kids? Well, my dad told me that it's an infringement on my freedoms. I can't breathe. I teach. I'm 50. I'll be 58 next week. I teach a spin class with a mask on. And I'm working out while I'm doing it. I just ran I ran 3.75 miles on the elliptical and rode a couple miles on the thing with a mask on. Your 12 to 13-year-old, if they can't breathe, if they can't breathe with that, they shouldn't be going to school, because if they got that, they'd be dead. If they have a problem breathing. If they can't handle a mask, if their lungs are that weak, they shouldn't be going to school. They should be home, being homeschooled. And if a mask is going to kill them and have their freedom and making them sick, then, put them in a bubble. Put them in a fucking, you know what? Maybe they need more. Put them in a fucking plastic bubble if they can't breathe, and you pump all the oxygen in there. I know it's the opposite of what you're trying to achieve. Ideally, they'd like to have nobody wearing a mask. Teachers carrying guns in the classroom, probably. They like that. Because, the only solution to school violence or mass shootings is bringing more guns in. Makes a lot of sense. Right? Right? That makes a lot of sense. Kind of pissy on that. And while we're at it and stuff like that, since we're all pissy to stuff, a prediction, and I'm going to make a prediction, and it's not probably going to be popular. People, all these even the people that support Joe Biden, they're getting so pissy about the pullout from Afghanistan. It's going on 20 years. What do you expect to achieve when you cannot achieve it? When the Afghanis aren't going to fight? And it's a shame. Yes, the women are going to be subjugated. But if you're not going to fight for your women, protect your daughters and your wives and yourself from these backward fucks who, you got to remember, if you go back a couple of years, Mike Pompeo and Donald Trump signed an agreement with the Taliban, a peace agreement with them, and now they're scrubbing off all their websites, but they did it. They legitimized the Taliban. If they're going to get solace and support and no pushback from their own population, and we give them, how long do you think it will take to build an army? 20 years? It should have been ready. If you were eager to join the rank of nations, modern nations, and you don't want to be fucking medieval theocracy, then you better fight for it. You have to fight for it. We did that shit here over the Civil War. So a bunch of people that, decided it was all right to own human beings. And people say, well, that wasn't the Civil War. Oh, well, you can fucking disagree with me on that. But, it's in the Constitution of the Confederate States of America that slavery was in that document. And they call it their particular institution, the peculiar institution ours. But once you're able to do that and you think it's all right, then obviously all the other things that you're going to do to mistreat humans go along with it. Just like, Andersonville and shit like that. The Andersonville was a Confederate prison camp where they starved, Union prisoners and stuff like that. Not saying there wasn't stuff on the Union side. There weren't bad people on the Union side, but there were bigger ideas. There's bigger ideas. And we had a big idea when, I guess, with Afghanistan. We figure, get rid of the Taliban, take it away as a safe haven for terrorists, and do some nation building. Well, how'd that work out? No nation building. They're corrupt. The government left Afghanistan before it fell. They did not stay behind. Just evacuated, went to Tajikistan. I don't know. The guy's going to wait there in Tajikistan and stuff like that. Eventually, probably there's going to be a hit squad probably going after their president because thinking that president's going to try to come back. But there was no Karzai or whatever the guy is now. Karzai was the one, Mohammed Karzai, whose brother was a warlord and a big-time drug dealer. Fuck. That country never wanted to get serious. And yes, there were people in that country that helped and stuff like translators and stuff like that. And we should try to do that. But you know what? What Joe Saul said, we either got to get out now or we're never going to fucking get out. It's like leaving a fucking party. And they're insisting that you come. The party's going full tilt and they're starting, the coke comes out, the crystal meth comes out. You think, well, we better fucking get out of this thing before we can. Or do you hang around? How many more? Yeah, it's bad imagery. It is horrible imagery right now. Us pulling out. You know what's worse? Staying in. Because there was never a solution. Everyone says, we have McMaster on the news and he's saying, well, there's a way to do it. Well, why the fuck didn't you do it before? You had 20 years to do it. I had a gentleman I knew who was a teacher in Philadelphia. And we were having, this is 2004. 2004, I think. I had been maître their wedding. And we're having it, the guy was the groom. And we're having a drink after the reception. And I don't think there's another party found. So we're just hanging out with the bride and groom. And he just says, you know what? I told my buddies here and stuff like that. He was an Army reservist. He said, we should have just defeated him, declared victory, and left the field. Right after we got the Taliban, let them go in there. And if we have to go in again, we're going again. We could have went in with the amount of people we lost with the initial invasion and it collapsed within a couple months. We could have went in 10 times. Went in, threw them out, did another thing, get rid, They could have done it 10 times and still wouldn't have lost the amount of resources and how many lives were lost. Afghani lives, U.S. lives. What's the purpose? Being there, having American flag on it is in the Islamic world, it just pisses them off. So Joe decided to leave abruptly, and you don't like the optics of it. Well, too bad. History will show, just like I said with the thing, history will show who was right and who was wrong. Just like Vietnam. We stayed there a little too long. Well, not as long as this, but luckily we didn't, wasn't jungle warfare and stuff like that, but it was still pretty bad. The plans to have the military tell you about nation building, the military knows nothing about nation building. Military should specialize in destroying other militaries. That's their job. And you have other guys that come in. The military that's not their designation. We do not set up constitutions and things like that. Now, you can go and say, hey, didn't MacArthur do that after World War II in Japan? Well, Japan was a modern country at that time. Their main thing was the worship of the emperor, the god emperor thing. And setting up a constitution gave the intellectual class, spread the power out more, and invested people in that form of government. And instead of being like a real tight pyramid with at the top you have the emperor and then the people under him and then some of the wealthy people and stuff like that. You just made it a little wider. Afghanistan wasn't able to do it. You had the warlords at the top, you got the Taliban, you got the religious leaders, and you have some fuckers that they don't want to have to, I don't know what the deal is, why. I mean, they're violent motherfuckers. That's all they are. Throwing gay people off roofs of buildings and stuff like that. That's ISIS. But they did the same thing. Years ago before we took over, they were blowing up these old Buddhist statues. Right? I mean, they were just destroying it because it was graffiti to their own country. Their own heritage. They just fucked it over. It's like people blowing up the Washington Monument. If you ever see The Handmaid's Tale, Abraham Lincoln was destroyed in that. They just totally screwed it up. I wonder what would happen if those guys won on January 6th, the ones that, if that was bigger than it was and they were able to get a couple representatives and stuff like that, and maybe hold them hostage and stuff like that. I wonder what would have happened in Washington, D.C. I mean, is there anything there that's sacred to them? Obviously not. They shit on stuff. I don't mean to be negative and stuff like that, and I know this is kind of counterproductive to that, but I do appreciate it. I felt the need to have to say that. I'm tired of hearing it in the bar. Dopey people seizing on the moment of things that were done stupidly over years, and they have to be fixed, and they want it fixed their way if it's going to be fixed. They're going to complain either way. No, we should never leave Afghanistan, we should never leave Iraq, or we should leave Iraq and we should leave Afghanistan, whatever they fucking want. They weren't able to do it. So someone else has to clean up their mess, and now they're complaining about it. You know how it is. Well, I'd like to thank you for listening. Sorry for about being on my soapbox. I'd like to say thank you to all my listeners, especially my friends in Warsaw, Krakow, Tarnov. Thank you. I'd like to thank my listeners in Canada. We had some in Saudi Arabia, India, and these other countries. Florida, which is a country unto itself. Delaware. Mainly my dad and my sister and all that stuff. No, my sister's in Maryland. So I'd like to thank you for listening. Please share this show with your friends. And listen, if this is streaming on... This show is available on these... I don't think I get feeds from all of it. I think people copy and post it on there, stuff like that. So I probably have more listeners than anything. If you want to contact me, not all my information comes through to you. But if you want to contact me at jim@keysbartender.com. Check my social media sites. You can message me on those. That's Keys Bartender on Facebook, Keys Bartender on Twitter, Keys Bartender on Instagram. Like and share the stories that share the podcast with your friends. I know I do this. I guess as a clearinghouse to get people pissed off. They go, "Fuck you! You should not be doing politics on this stuff." And I say, "Well, wait a second. I can do whatever I want. I do not currently have a sponsor right now, and if someone's pretending to be a sponsor of mine, they're not. Like I think I show up on 43 Keys Media, which used to be company that would do." Was supposed to do promotion for my podcast, never did it and stuff like that, and I still show up, and it's supposed to be a year, and it's been over a year. I told myself we're not doing it anymore. I want to be off your website. Stop posting my episodes. They never really talk to me, so don't listen to it on that platform, please. On 43 Keys of Me, if you do get it on that. Try to pick it up. It's free on everything. But you don't have to listen to their commercials and stuff like that. I don't get anything from them. They are just using the show, and eventually I may seek some legal recourse to get them out because they're in violation of the original contract. Oh, and that's enough for me bitching today. I'm sorry about that. Thank you very much. Have a great day. Bye.